Hi there. Now, it's been quite a long break since I last recorded a video, and I've been keeping myself pretty busy, mostly with my computer repair business, and I've done various attempts at videos, but nothing that I really felt was good enough to put online, so I haven't uploaded them. But recently I've been thinking about a particular issue relating to anxiety, and it prompted me to kind of do some research on the internet to find out sort of current thinking, at least amongst the psychological psychologists I should say, to get an idea of what the current thinking is and how they understand the way we as human beings react when we're frightened. Now, I thought a good starting place probably for such a search would be to look at fight or flight, and many people understand what that means. It's the commonly accepted view of what we do when we're threatened by something, if we're in danger. We either stand and fight, whatever it is, if it's like something attacking us, or we run away, we flee, fight or flight. Now, apparently now these concepts have been expanded. There are now, instead of 2 F's, there are actually 5. And the other 3, one is called friend. I don't really understand this one, but it's apparently something that babies do. It's their way of reacting to any form of hostility or threat that's directed against them, is to try and befriend their attacker, if you like, if I can put it that way, which is, talk about babies, that's not a very good thing to talk about. But according to psychologists, that is the only thing they are capable of, which, I have my doubts over. Anyway, that's what it's called, friend. And the 4th one is called flop, which, as the word suggests, a person when confronted with a major danger or threat will just pass out, lose consciousness. And the 5th one is freeze, which again, that was something that's been used over a fairly long time, and it describes what an animal or a person can do when faced with an imminent danger, is to freeze, motionless, not move. Now, I was reading all about these and looking at the way that they reckon they work in various types of situation. And then it struck me, I thought, well, none of this really describes what happens to a person who's in an anxiety state, where the threat is not something that is external to them. In the vast majority of cases, it's internal, it's within them, it's the feelings and thoughts that are in them. That is what is considered to be the danger or the threat, and that is what they are reacting in fear to, which is simple enough. And I thought, well, how can you apply these 5 F's to that situation? Because it doesn't really work. You can say yes, a person reacts with fight and flight to internal fear, to the fear within. But neither of these is an effective strategy in dealing with it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So a lot of people get themselves deeper and deeper into the anxiety state because they are trying to use fight or flight. So then I thought, well, the acceptance approach that I keep talking about on these videos, there's not really a term for that as being a response to fear, specifically a response to internal fear, the fear that an anxiety sufferer feels within themselves. So I thought, why? Why haven't they identified this? It's a very obvious thing. Years ago, this is what Claire Weeks said. She looked at it she was a scientist, and she looked at all the experiences of people that came to her and she observed, she realised exactly what was going on with these people. And at that time, all that was done really to kind of sort people in the anxiety state out was to give them psychoanalysis, which in a great many cases did nothing to actually deal with their current state of fear, which she used to point out. She used to have disputes with her contemporaries over this, because they always insisted that there had to be some hidden reason, some past reason why an anxiety sufferer is in that state. And she insisted that that isn't true. And she's right. She's right. And of all the people that I've spoken to, or have written to me, or I've had communications with of one sort or another, it's very obvious that the state they are in now is because they are frightened of how they feel. Simple as that. So I thought, well, there needs to be another definition here. There needs to be something that people can understand as being a valid response to this particular thing that is seen as a danger, the fear itself. I thought, well, if you want to use another word beginning with F, and I've used this word a lot when I've been talking about my own recovery, then it's function. This is what I've been learning to do, is to function in spite of this threat, this danger, as I had seen it for so long. I saw the fear itself as a danger, a threat to me. So I was learning a different response, and that was to function. Now, I'm not sure that kind of encapsulates the full meaning of what the acceptance approach actually means. That's another thing I did, which was to look up what acceptance is actually defined as in the dictionary. And one definition is, it's the action of consenting to receive or undertake something offered, which means you're willingly receiving something that's being offered to you, which sounds kind of weird if you look at it in the context of anxiety. You're not being offered these feelings, they're being thrust upon you. That's how it feels. You don't have any choice in the matter. You're not, not something nice being offered to you. However, when I thought about it more, I thought, well, she chose that word perfectly, because this is what her approach is teaching people to do. It's learning to accept what's being offered, to consent to receive what's being offered. This is what it's all about. It's about being prepared to give up the futile responses of fighting it and trying to run away from it because they don't work, and to find a third way, one that does work. And this is why she chose acceptance. She was saying that you need to be willing to receive these feelings. That is the basis of it. You need to be willing to have all these experiences and not keep trying to get yourself out of it, not keep trying to run away from it or stop it in any way. That is what does the trick. That is what gets you out of it, because you are keeping the whole thing going because of your fighting attitude. The usual stuff doesn't work. Fighting, trying to run away, does not work. So that's why I thought, well, function is a good word, because you learn how to function in spite of having these feelings. So far so good. That's a word you can remember, function. It means that you are capable of doing things. You can function. You're able to do things in spite of any fear feelings you get. And that's what it is that takes you to cure, takes you to recovery. Now, this is what I had to do with lots of different aspects of anxiety that used to restrict me. And this is the only way that I found that I could actually overcome it. Now, that's my criticism of the way current sort of psychological thinking. That is where I see it falls down. There's something wrong with the definitions and something wrong with the understanding. One other major factor, which again is not something I've seen referred to very often, or at least not in in contemporary psychology, is the idea of sensitization. And this is something that Claire Weeks identified years ago, and it explains why it is that an anxiety sufferer does get caught up in the anxiety state. Given that I've described what sensitization is many times, but just so everybody's clear, it means that your nervous system that is producing fear feelings within you is doing so in an exaggerated, intense way, and that the slightest little thing can trigger one of these intense reactions. That is being sensitized. That is having a sensitized nervous system. It's a hair trigger reaction. The slightest little thing will set it off. And that explains why it is that people get trapped in the anxiety state, because they're being subject to these constant, endless, repetitive, frightening, intense feelings that come into their lives over the stupidest little things. And they don't understand why they feel so afraid, why the feelings are so intense. Anyone who's ever been in an anxiety state at some time prior to that will have suffered anxiety, but not this kind of anxiety, not this exaggerated kind. And this is why they're so confused and bewildered by it. And this is why they can be so easily trapped by it, because they're getting all this stuff, bad stuff happening inside them. You know, who wouldn't if they're faced with that day in, day out, as so many are. And added to which, the very fact that it's not recognised in the medical literature on the subject also explains why the people who want to help anxiety sufferers, the psychologists, the psychotherapists, the therapists, the doctors, unless they have an understanding of what this means to the sufferer, they're not going to understand. They're not going to understand what the person is going through. They can't understand because they have no frame of reference. They've got nothing they can compare it to in their own lives. So they tend to think of anxiety just in the terms that they themselves have experienced it. And therefore they cannot adequately treat a person because they don't understand what it is that this person is going through. They can't understand it. So those are the shortcomings, I think, which mean that so many people don't have the information they need to recover, because the people they're asking don't really understand it fully, and the information is not sort of mainstream. It's not freely available. In fact, in my experience, certainly, the only treatment offered, by and large, has been medication, which is not a cure. It controls and it can make a big difference. Yes, I'm not against medication, but as a means of getting somebody out of an anxiety state, it is not a cure. It is something to help them to cure, help them towards cure, towards recovery, as it was for me. So, what are we to do about this situation? Well, it's very clear that there is still a great deal of confusion and misunderstanding, and the very fact that there are people like me on YouTube doing videos about their own anxiety experience, and the very fact that there are so many of us doing it and so many of us watching it, just proves how much ignorance there is on the subject, because these people were desperately seeking answers to understand why they are in the state they're in. And the answers they are getting are not adequate answers. They're not hearing enough information. They're not having things explained to them. And it's a tragedy to my mind. So this is why, in my own small way, I'm trying to offer these explanations to people that need them. Trying to give you examples from my own experience of what I did and how others can do the same. And I'm not the only person who's done this. There are many, many others that have. So this is what I continue to try and do. And it's I think it's obvious that some people that have come to me have had conflicting information from wherever they sought help before, and they're confused because they don't really know the right approach. And going back to what I was saying earlier about this having a new word called function, it's having a clear understanding of that basic thing, as well as having a clear understanding of what it is you're doing wrong. You're fighting and fleeing and it doesn't work. Having a clear understanding of sensitization and the role that plays in keeping you like this. And then you can start to look at how you cure yourself, and then you can practice the things you need to do to cure yourself. And this is what this is what the word function means in this context. It means to go out and take your fear with you, and take your sensitized fear with you. Not wait until you're feeling a bit calmer, but to take it with you. So this is what I continue to try and explain. And I think I shall. There's certain areas in anxiety I still need to talk about, such as insomnia and things like existential thoughts. But I really wanted to kind of use this video to sort of say, well, look, whatever you might have heard or read, whatever information you've found so far, and if you're still in the anxiety state, then it's not working for you. You need to do something else. That is very apparent if you look at the various massive number of social media outlets for people in the anxiety state, anxiety, panic, depression, all of it. There's enormous numbers of people who are involved trying to pull information together, trying to figure out what they need to do. And again, lack of information is holding these people back, and it's wrong. It's all wrong. So I shall try and again make it more understandable by using my own experiences as examples to show you what I did. And there's nothing special about me or what I did. I'm just an average person who used a particular way of doing things to get myself out of the anxiety state. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give more examples, and I shall try and treat it with take some of the more common examples of anxiety symptoms, not just symptoms but also the frightening thoughts as well, because like I said, existential thoughts are a big problem for a lot of people. So before I drone on too long on this particular video, that's what I plan to do, and I'll try and not be such a long period before I do the next video. And in the meantime, go back over my videos if you want to, or just read Claire Weeks certainly, or listen to her audio recordings. She's so brilliant at explaining all this stuff. Nobody has ever really come close to doing it the same way she has. So until next time, I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.